Welcome to Syntax. Today we have a show for you on Biome. We have Emanuele Stoppa on, who's the creator and maintainer of Biome, and we're going to talk all about it.
And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You can sign up today and get 2 months for free. Sentry is just a really incredible tool for not only tracking your performance, making sure your application has no bugs, but even just seeing what goes wrong when something goes wrong, because things go wrong all the time when we're coding. And you don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right, Wes.
Biome is a one-stop shop tool chain, formatter, linter, maybe even more at some point for your TypeScript, JavaScript, JSX, maybe HTML projects at some point. It's built in Rust. It aims to create like a wicked fast alternative to tools like Prettier, ESLint, while having like a simple configuration, one tool, kind of do it all, actionable error message, all kinds of really neat stuff. So pretty excited about this. We're going to talk to Emma today. He's the project lead, and talk about where Biome came from. It was Rome at one point. Now it's Biome, as well as like what the end game is on it. So welcome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. This is exciting. We had a whole show on like next gen JavaScript tooling. We talked about the sort of all the things in this space, and Biome is one of the ones that we spent quite a bit of time on. So pretty excited about it. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of who you are and what Biome is?
Sure. I watched that episode. It was really interesting.
Oh, good.
I was curious to know what you talked about. So I'm Emanuele, Ema, short version. I'm from Italy. I live in Ireland. I'm very passionate about open source. I've been contributing to open source for a long time. I started with Webpack, so a long time ago. And then Webpack CLI, and then Rome, now Biome and Astro. So I'm everywhere. What's Biome? Well, Biome, as you maybe mentioned, it's essentially a tool chain of the web that wants to provide a new developer experience around formatting, linting, error messaging, all in one experience, so CLI and editors. So it's quite, it wants to provide a lot of stuff. And in the future, we might provide also other tooling like type-aware lint rules, compiling, support for other languages. So it takes a lot of the old philosophy from Rome. So we carried over most of the philosophy. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a good introduction to, I think one of the first questions we really wanted to ask you was, because we had talked about Rome on the show for a little while. Once it was announced, it was sort of announced as being like the tool chain for JavaScript, and it never came to fruition. Can you talk a little bit about what happened to Rome and how it now became Biome and what went on there?
Yeah, so when Rome was announced, it was essentially an open source project as others. It was written in TypeScript. It welcomed a lot of contributors. Among those, it was me. After a few months, the creator, Sebastian McKenzie, managed to raise some funding, and there was a company around it. And I was part of the first employees. After a few months, we decided to rewrite everything in Rust. So it was quite a lot of work. We essentially threw away a lot of things that we already had. So a full rewrite, it's a massive overtaking job. And eventually, we managed to launch after a year and a half, more or less, a formatter that was almost Prettier compatible and the foundation of the linter. After this year and a half, we essentially we were let go, because the company finished all the money. So I don't know where the money went other than paying the employees and some other expenses. So I don't have the insights because as an employee, I don't have access to this kind of information. But yeah, so no more money. We were all let go. And so there was a lot of speculation. So I read a lot of articles, saw a lot of videos.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And like what I was most like impressed by was that like, yeah, we didn't hear much from Rome for a couple of years, and then I saw Biome's gonna be forked, and I thought like, yeah, like that's cool, but like, are we gonna see anything? And then like, I don't know, maybe 3-6 months later, I'm installing it in a project and using it, and there's still quite a ways to go. I'm sure you're very busy, but I was impressed to see that sort of had popped up. So was it you? Like you said, okay, I'm gonna fork this thing, and then like now who's paying you to work on this thing?
No one. So, I mean, it's pure open source. After we were let go, like I was so passionate about the project that like I continued working as a maintainer, in my free time, spare time. So in the meantime, I was seeking a new job, a new position. Eventually, I landed Astro. But in the meantime, I was still working on Rome. There were already some people that were helping me. So it wasn't just me. Fortunately, there were other people that we were able to attract, even though the community was really small. And these few volunteers eventually became the core team of Biome. We fought the project mainly because it was unsustainable. I didn't have all the permissions because most of the permissions belong to Sebastian, and as I wasn't part of the company anymore, I couldn't do anything. So I said, like, maybe it's the good thing that we fork it. So we leave our baggage behind. New project, new team, new philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
probably
good.
too with a lot of the learnings, right? You probably learned quite a bit, and then now you get to start essentially fresh with those learnings. How many people are working on Biome now?
So now the core team is around 6-7 people. I don't remember the numbers, but we also have a lot of maintainers.
Cool.
So we have a kind of a ladder where maintainers are essentially people that regularly contribute, but then we have the core members, which are essentially the pioneers of the project. So they essentially lead the project. They shape the roadmap, and so I try to delegate to everyone. Each core team member has the same rights as me. So even though I'm the lead, I'm just a face. Behind me, there's a lot of people.
Awesome. But let's talk about like what does Biome actually do? I mentioned that it's sort of a replacement for a formatter, which is like a Prettier, and a linter, which big one obviously is ESLint. I know that the original Rome had grander visions in terms of like also it being a test runner and several other things. Is that what you're focusing on right now, being a formatter and a linter?
We are focusing on that. On the side, we also working on plugins, for example, and other supporting new languages and transformations. So like compiling TypeScript to JavaScript. So that's what we want to focus.
Oh, wow. So it could be a Babel replacement or a TypeScript to JavaScript alternative?
Yes.
Awesome. And we should say like Sebastian was the creator of Babel, right? So like obviously he knew a lot about that space as well. So what's wrong? Like most people are probably listening to this being like, I use Prettier, I use ESLint, and yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to get set up, but once it works, isn't it fine? Do we need more tools?
So like I would like to bring like a different vision from the current setup. The current setup, it's just one. You don't have alternatives that actually are good and production ready. So that's what Biome is. So it wants to be production ready, and that's why our formatter is Prettier compatible. It has 97% compatibility in terms of formatting for JavaScript and TypeScript files. So you essentially use Prettier. There are a few exceptions well documented in our website, but they're really edge cases. So I wouldn't worry too much. And if you see a difference that is not an exception, it's just a bug. So you file the bug, and we aim to fix it. And you set up Prettier, you set up ESLint. It takes you 3-4 hours, 6 hours, half a day. That's. I mean, you don't want to spend 6 hours, especially if you are an employer, and spending just 6 hours to set up a few tools. Yeah, it works at some point, but there are some projects where doing linting, type checking takes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I believe in some cases this is not acceptable, especially because we pay CI times. So you want to reduce the time as much as you can. The build is important. So why linting must be so damn frustrating? Formatting. So.
And to be clear, when you're talking about speed there, you're talking about not setup, but the speed at which the tools run. And do you have any insight as to why those tools are currently slow and how Biome does it faster?
So for Prettier, for example, I think what it doesn't have is parallelism. So it's not able to execute operations in parallel. So multi-threading and stuff like that. I think the modern JavaScript allows you with Node to use web workers. So try to use multiple CPUs. Although I don't think Prettier right now, it does that. So it's one thing that Biome does. It spawns essentially threads there's no tomorrow, and each thread formats a file, and at the end we just group all the diagnostic, and we tell you what's wrong and what's not. Then, I think also ESLint also doesn't have multi-threading, and another thing I think is the issue with TypeScript. When you use TypeScript ESLint, you also have to go back and forth to communicate with the TypeScript APIs or the TS server, and that takes a lot of time and resources.
Oh, because TypeScript ESLint is using TSC to do what? To get type errors, or to convert from TypeScript to JavaScript so it can be then run through ESLint.
So as far as I know, what the plugin does is to actually retrieve type information of a certain part of the code that needs to lint. So it needs to understand what's the type of this symbol, what's the type of this interface. Yeah. And based on this metadata, is able to provide you with the proper linting and the message.
Oh, yeah. Especially we had folks from JSR on, and they are implementing this whole no slow types thing, because there are certain parts of TypeScript that can make your code base extremely slow because you cannot parallelize them, right? You have to do one thing, then another, and that will really get you if you need that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing I think Biome is good at is caching. We do a lot of aggressive internal caching. So when we parse a file, and in case we reparse it due to linting or formatting, when we reparse it, tokens that were already parsed are essentially reused. So we don't do the same work twice.
Okay. Awesome. And the reason... It's interesting, the reason why it's fast is you're explaining all of these things, but how much of that is also because you've written it in Rust? Like, why was there a decision to write it in Rust initially when you're back at Rome? You're like, you know what, maybe we should do this in Rust.
Yeah, so Rome back in the day was a one single package without dependencies. The only dependency was just TypeScript for type checking.
Mm-hmm.
This is I wouldn't recommend this kind of project to anyone. Like, dependencies are bread and butter of us developers. Like, why have to reinvent the wheel if there is a battle tester package that does that for me? Thing is, because of JavaScript and how dynamic it is, sometimes breaking changes happen and you are not guaranteed that things to work. So Sebastian, when created Rome, wanted to have something that works all the time, everything is owned, and that's it. It wasn't sustainable. So with Rust, what we get a mature language. So we can say that Rust is matured enough to be used in different kind of environments. Strictly typed, so when you get a dependency update, the types tell you when something breaks or not. So, and the language allows you for backwards compatibility. So they are really good and implementing new features without breaking existing code. And the ecosystem also is quite good. So there are tons of really good crates used also by Dino. So if they use them, and Dino is quite successful and fast. So another confirmation that Rust and the ecosystem is good.
Yeah.
I just amazed after talking to people that run extremely large code bases. You think about airlines, Shopify, Facebook, these types of things where speed really, really means a lot. Like type checking for me, or like if I'm running a linter on my course platform and it adds, I don't know, a 10-second check to my CI, and I do that maybe 3 times a day with a pull request, I add an extra 30 seconds of compute. Whereas like you look at some of these code bases, and I'm curious if you know of any stories or stats like this, is it's hours and hours of compute time when it's added all together. It could take 10 minutes to lint an entire project. Like you make one little change, we got to lint the entire code base to make sure that didn't cause an issue somewhere else in the code base. We got to type check the whole thing. And now all of a sudden our CI bill is ballooning because we have 5,000 developers. They're all putting in two PRs a day. That's 10,000 CI runs, and they're running a couple of minutes each. And before you know it, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in compute every single day. So I don't know, do you have any stories of companies like that where they're spending tons of money or tons of time?
A story, no, but I know for a fact that a few months ago, Yagis, probably is one of the Node.js tier core maintainer. He actually introduced Biome at Sentry as part of reducing times throughout the code base in terms of bundling, linting, formatting, and actually saved a lot of time by using Biome's formatter and Biome's linter, maybe together with ESLint, because Biome that can't provide all the features that some plugins from ESLint are able to do. And yeah, he told me that he saved a lot of time in Sentry as part of this internal mission that he had. And I'm quite happy that Sentry was able to use it as one of the early adopters, by the way. Like, I think it's one of the first projects that tried to use it. I'm quite satisfied by the results.
It's crazy. So I'll tell you one story. We're allowed to say this because Millen, CEO of Sentry, tweeted it out. So Yagid's made one change in their code base. This is not Biome, but it's the similar idea. He made a one-line change in some weird loop to check for caching, and it saved Sentry $100,000 a year in compute. One line. Wild to me that those types of things can add up. so much and just end up being a big bill at the end of the day.
Yeah, compute time, no joke, if you're paying by the minute for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at its very basic, how, like, let's say you're hearing this, you say, I want to give Biome a try.
Yeah.
What do you do to get going with Biome? Like, what does the setup process look like, and how do you use it?
So Biome works out of the box without any configuration file. So you can just do npx, name of the package, so at Biome.JS/Biome, format, dot, and it just works.
Nice.
So doesn't need any setup like we mentioned at the beginning, setting up Prettier and ESLint all together. With Biome, like if you want to try it, you just do it. You have the same with the VS Code extension. Like we provide a way to download the actual binary from GitHub, so you don't need any installation. So if you don't have it, but you still want to try it, we download the binary for you, and it just works. Biome has really good defaults. So we have defaults for the formatter and defaults for our lint rules. And if you're happy, that's good. If you're not, you can create a configuration file and Biome will pick it up for you. So you still don't need installation. Like we don't need Node to run it. Like we have a really light dependency on Node. If you install it from an npm, we just have like a script that checks the architecture and of your machine, and we run the binary for you.
I'll tell you, I installed it in a couple projects. Every time I start a new project, I think, what should I use? What should I use in this one? And yeah, it just works, And then I found myself, like, as I was coding, instead of like taking all of my like ESLint rules or whatever over, I started just like, all right, just give me what you got. And then allow me to, I just like, that's annoying to me. I don't like the way it formats that. That linting error is not something I care about. Then I'll just go into the Biome.JSON file and add it in. And I think there's also the VS Code. Is this true? The VS Code had a way to add the rule to the JSON file. Maybe I'm imagining that. I think I am imagining it, given your
I don't even know what you're talking about, Wes. Yeah.
So like, let's say I have a linting error in my project that Biome's telling me about, like no shadow variables, and I'm like, I understand that, but I want to turn that off for this one. I was imagining this. Like, I would love to be able to just click it and it would open up my Biome JSON and have it configured for me that I can just put the thing in.
Oh, that one is actually a good suggestion. No, we don't have it, but it would be nice. You can like suppress the ruling line. So when you have your box, quick fix, we suggest you a suppression comment. But but we don't have this feature to go back to the JSON file and add in that. But it's good suggestion. That's good.
Yeah, sweet. Well, that's what I'm here for. I am curious about, so Biome is going towards full Prettier compatibility. Will you give us more options than Prettier gives us? That's always the thing people have with Prettier, is that there's not a lot of knobs to turn on Prettier. You kind of it's opinionated on purpose.
Yeah, we took actually the same philosophy. So we want to try to keep options as lame as possible to avoid too much bug shedding, and mistakes like Prettier acknowledges that has done some mistakes with the options. So we also acknowledge that. So we want to carry the same mistakes, and yeah, that's it. So we try to restrict. Doesn't mean that we won't add them. It's just we have to justify them. We have to be really good to justify these kind of options.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think one of the big things for me is that the reason why I haven't picked it up in all of my work yet is just because of language support. So the language support table, which we'll post, is really impressive because it seems like you guys are flying on this language support. Every time I check it, it's a little bit different here. But right now it has full support for parsing, formatting, linting in JavaScript, TypeScript, JSX, TSX, JSON, and JSON-C. So we also have partial support for Vue, Svelte, and Astro. Now, since my work is mainly in Svelte, the Svelte support is only through the JavaScript aspects of Svelte, or the script aspects of Svelte. So do you foresee those types of things for like Vue, Svelte, and Astro being resolved once HTML and CSS full support has been added?
Yeah. So HTML support is on the way. Like we're actively working on it when I have time. From time to time, I create some PR with some parsing. Of course, this is not actually HTML, but each language has their own dialect. Astro has a different dialect compared to Vue or Svelte. So there are some implications that we have to design in Biome. So it's going to take more time than expected. We want to try to be as generic as possible, but in a really strictly typed language as Rust, it requires more time than JavaScript, for example. So
do you have to like write a whole language parser for every one of these languages? Because we had Nicholas Zakis on the show explaining how ESLint works, and basically they take the file, they explode it into this nested object of what's called an AST, abstract syntax tree, and it gives you all of the pieces of the syntax and tells you like, oh, this is a curly bracket, this is a variable, and then you can write rules against those specific things. So if you're writing it all in Rust, you're not able to like lean on a lot of the stuff that's available in JavaScript land, are you?
Yeah, exactly. There's at the moment we have this constraint where we have our own CST or kind of AST, so it's all really already hard-coded. So we are not able to. We might be able to use parser from another Rust crate, but we still need to map it to our own syntax. Our syntax is quite weird. We have it's really strictly typed, and we essentially generate everything from a syntax document, and we have a job that parses it and creates. There's a lot of code gen there, because as a strictly typed language, you must have everything ahead of time. So when you parse everything, you have all these slots where you essentially, like a puzzle with a hole, so you basically place all the AST nodes in the right place. That's how the parser works, more or less.
Wow.
That's good. And I want to ask about like plugins as well, or I think you mentioned it earlier. Like one of the huge benefits to the whole ESLint ecosystem is that like any developer out there can go and write an ESLint plugin because it's just in JavaScript. I don't think that's the case for Rust developers. So if somebody wants to create a Biome plugin, or if that's going to be a thing at some point, is that going to be an issue? Are we going to have to write them in Rust?
So we are exploring this. We don't think Rust is going to be the way. So we are exploring DSL. Actually, we are implementing a DSL system to create lint rules, and eventually using JavaScript together with a runtime to create lint rules. Rust, it could be a nice to have, but we think that small rules or rules that are really domain specific to your company or to your project make sense in that domain. But if there's a rule that requires, like, it's more generic and it benefits the whole ecosystem, it should be ported into core and written in Rust. That's the kind of philosophy that we want to have. So one of our core maintainers is actually working on the DSL. So we chose this DSL called GridQL. It's quite recent. It's based on three-seater. We already have a parser for the GridQL files, and little news like the core maintainer that is working on that managed to actually extract a generic engine of the GridQL system. He mentioned on Discord that is actually a great stepping stone towards having this DSL working on Biome, because we want to use our own engine. So we want to parse these files. We want to do all the bindings using our own EST, our own implementation, semantic model, and everything. And once we have all the runtime, we might be able to actually have these plugins. So a person can write a GridQL file. We're going to have also formatter for that. So that's how good Biome infrastructure is. And we just try. So we're going to pick up these files. We're going to have our own runtime, and we're going to export our diagnostics based on this role.
Oh, this is really cool. So I'm just reading the docs for it right now, and it seems like it is very popular in the code mod space right now, which if you have a very large code base, you need to make some API changes, or you need to be able to upgrade lots and lots of files. Find and replace isn't gonna kick it, right? You need something that's a little bit smarter about how your code works and how things are imported and all the different syntax. So that's just cool. You could write GridQL queries to do code mods.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen this.
Do the similar. No, I have not seen this either. Wow.
Yeah, it seems really powerful. It has a lot of great features and potentially other new features. Also, like I think maybe they plan to do something with the control flow, because we have a control flow feature in Biome. So imagine also binding it with a GridQL engine would be nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
We got to ask about Ezno. So we talked about Ezno as well, which is the very ambitious project to create a new TypeScript type checker. In the world right now of JavaScript tools, there are not many, but there's a handful of tools that will take the types off of your JavaScript and give you JavaScript out the other end. And there's many tools that will convert your JSX into just JavaScript. But there are no tools except for the base TypeScript one that will actually do type checking. And Ezno is one of two sort of projects that are trying to do this. What's the story there? You had included it initially, but it's no longer part of Biome?
So for this year, so roadmap 2024, we want to be quite honest and say we won't be able to do type checking because we aren't Microsoft. So
yeah, it's huge.
So what we want to do is a different approach. So be able to infer types or types from a JavaScript language and be able to provide more lint roles based on the inference of the types. So we essentially leverage TypeScript, although we won't be able probably to do the actual engine. So computing these really complex types that sometimes you see on GitHub, on the web, probably it's going to be quite difficult. So it's going to be limited, but I think it's going to be a good experiment for us to eventually try to do something more.
Beautiful. Wow. And do you think that we will ever see another TypeScript type checker? Because I think the reason why we don't see it is there's no spec for TypeScript. It's a can of worms. I'm sure it's edge cases all the way down. And I can't imagine working on some of these TypeScript code bases that are for libraries, let alone the tool that actually does the type checking itself. Do you think we'll ever see that? Or do you think we're going to see somebody's going to make a new typed language that is kind of similar to TypeScript?
Yeah, I think the second option is the the more feasible one. TypeScript has some goals, so they tell you what's TypeScript for, and it's an unsound type checker language, and so that's their mission, and they're quite good at it. But they have a lot of money, so they have a lot of people that are able to actually. They have also like a lot of smart people, like the inventor of essentially .NET and C#. So quite good. So I don't think we will see anytime soon a competitor of TypeScript, unless like we have a new flow or something different other than TypeScript with a different mission, like different expectations. That's essentially the gist.
Yeah, I often think about that. I'm like I understand, we have Flow, and there's actually been quite a few things that have been popping up recently, being like, Flow has some nice features that I kind of would want, or you want the ability to like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to type an error, and there's a bunch of stuff in JSX that would be nice to be able to have easier in TypeScript. So I often wonder, like, are we going to see the biome of TypeScript? Someone's gonna, especially once we get the new types proposal hit.
Yeah.
Are we going to see somebody who takes that and says, all right, this is a new language, very much like TypeScript. Given these restrictions, things are going to be a bit faster or a lot faster.
I hope so.
In that same regard, what are your thoughts on the types proposal?
I looked at it. It's nice, but it's quite basic. Like I think like the proposal has just few basic examples. So I don't know. I'm half and half. It seems good, but I'm not sure if it has like a good value in a runtime as JavaScript. Yeah, they say that these comments would be parsed as trivia comments, like something that we don't need it, but they still need to be parsed in order to be categorized as trivia. So there's a lot of going on also, like to consider. Engines like a V8 or a SpiderMonkey will have to essentially be the parser and be able to parse them. So I think it's more like an helpful way for having a kind of a spec for the types. So, because what TypeScript lacks is the spec.
Yeah,
that's one of the issues. Like when we were writing the TypeScript parser, there were a lot of gotchas and weird things that we were not able to understand because there's no spec. So
yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is like a formal way to have a spec in the language so people can go there and read it. And then TypeScript just adds some flavors and some logic that is meant for their goals of what they're doing. But then another compiler like Biome or Ezno comes into play and they do their own flavoring of type. So there's a lot of good in here if the spec is played quite well. The proposal goes as it should be.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page as well, and that's why I'm not like chomping at the bit. Like I think this is going to take years for us to figure out because this is our one time to really get it right. And if we rush it out, just trying to make it look like TypeScript, like maybe we should be asking ourselves, should it look any different?
Right? Does it need to look like TypeScript? Yeah,
exactly. So kind of interesting stuff. Another question I have is, you're one of these guys who you go to their GitHub and it's just a wall of green, and it's just like, and you're just like, how? I'm just like, how does somebody do this? I don't even know what my question is to you, but like, what does your day look like if you're just writing code all day long every day if it's all green like that?
Now, that is misleading because for GitHub, also commenting something, it's a contribution. So I don't code all days. So
okay.
Actually, my weekend, it's essentially playing video games, doing things with my wife, doing small trips, watching TV series. So I try to have a working free and coding free time. But sometimes I go to my smartphone, I check GitHub, and I reply to an issue. So,
oh, there you go. Actually, you're one of the few people. I look at your GitHub, and GitHub will split it up between review, commits, issues, and pull requests. and you have a higher code review than you actually do commits, which is like hats off to you. Like that's not easy going through somebody else's code and try to make understanding it, making sure everything is good.
Yeah, this is something that also my manager at Astro praised about.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to jump on others' colleagues' reviews and leave comments, even though I don't have the full picture of the features they're implementing. What I do, I just like to have common sense and look at the code if it's correct, and maybe sometimes just nitpicks,
So that's what you're doing. You're looking at the code and just glancing at it for patterns and nitpicks.
Sometimes, yeah. So I try to be helpful. I ask questions if there's some places where the code is weird or is doing something that it shouldn't do, like other exceptions. And I say, like, maybe we should document it. This is something, it seems to be an anti-pattern. So we're doing exception for this case. Let's document it. Or I don't understand this part because it wasn't part of the description. So I asked the developer, can you expand on this or can you document it? Is it part of the PR? So sometimes I try to be proactive in a sense like, better patterns or let's document code. I understand more or less the feature. You, developer, have to help me to review it. So like make a good description, tell me what are your changes, tell me how you're testing the feature. And thanks to that, I will be able to give you a better feedback, not just, nitpicks or comments.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. What do you do at Astro? Are you writing Rust over there as well, or are you slinging JavaScript like the rest of us?
Like the rest of everyone here that is listening, TypeScript and JavaScript. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes Go. Sometimes I write some Go. The Astro compiler is written in Go, so sometimes I do stuff in Go. Not that often, but yeah, I also implemented a few features and fixed a few bugs in the Astro compiler. So.
Wow. What other languages do you know? Seems like you're a pretty versed programmer.
Well, not that many, like Rust, a bit of Go, TypeScript and JavaScript. But back in the day, it was also like PHP and Groovy, which is a dialect of Java.
Oh, yeah. Man, that's good. And how did you learn Rust and Go? You just kind of picked it up, read the docs?
Yeah, the Rust, I learned it at Rome, so they give us the time and the resources to learn it, essentially read the book, do exercises, and then just wing it. So write code, really bad code, but at least it's code, and with the time you improve. Go, I just try to pick it up. The thing is, Go is very simple language, so very simple syntax, few features, so it doesn't have very complex things like traits or object-oriented programming. It's just very simple, so it's really easy to pick it up.
Is that why all the Go people are always mad at my JavaScript tweets? Because it's so much more complex.
Cool. Well, that's pretty amazing. I'm now that Biome is a little bit more supported than last time I looked at it, I'm going to definitely give it a whirl right now. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to hit before we move off of the Biome topic?
Yeah, a couple of things about Biome, quite niche. So it has a built-in support with VCS, GitHub. So like you can run it natively, like in pre-hook context using ASCII or left hook or any tool that you use for this kind of thing. So you can pass the proper options in the CLI, and essentially it handles formats and links only the files that you actually change it. And you can do the same also in CI. So if you in CI, you can run the command with -- change it and a different remote. It does that on a CI. So it doesn't format or check all the files. It checks only the files that were changed. So it saves you a lot of time.
Nice.
That's cool. And how does it know? Is it just using Git under the hood? Like, does it run some crazy Git command to find only the changed files?
Yeah. So you have to enable it, obtain via configuration, and then it runs via like response command, and it runs Git with the proper options. Mm-hmm. And then we just do some parsing of the output coming from Git. And then we just give all these files to Biome, and Biome just parses them and does
okay. That. And does it, like, let's say a file changed, but that file has like an import. Does it follow the import tree to make sure there's no issues down the thing, or is it just the file that's changed?
Just the file that's changed. Okay. Biome doesn't have a project awareness yet, so we're working towards this kind of things.
Gotcha.
And another thing that I forgot to say about performance CI, so we have a CI action, a GitHub action that just set up Biome. The good thing of this is that you don't need Node and any package manager in order to run it. Yeah. What the action does is scans your manifest package.json. It checks if you have Biome. It installs the binary from source and then runs the actual binary. So it's able to pick up the configuration, everything that you have. So you don't need to install Node.js. You don't need to install PM with the caching. So it's going to save you meaningful seconds and minutes. That's a good thing. Like being able to not be dependent from any runtime is actually, it can pay off.
Yeah. And now I understand. Like one of the sponsors, one of the sponsors of this project is Netlify. And you know why Netlify probably cares about this is they spend a ton of money on CI. Like that's a big part of their product is the build step. And part of that is bringing in the most recent version of Node.js in order to run a bunch of the tooling. So you better bet they'd be interested in minimizing that amount because then they can pass on that stuff to their users as well. I'm guessing is that true? I often say these things as if I know the internals of the company, but I imagine that's probably why they want to support the project.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope so.
Good. All right, let's move into the next section, which is Supper Club questions. We're curious what text editor, theme, and font you're using.
Ooh. Is it for me the question?
Yes. Yeah. What?
Wow. So I just know that I use the GitHub theme with their colors, and I'm not like what was that font or on Twitter?
Oh yeah.
What was that font? Or was that theme? I'm not that guy.
And you're on VS Code, or I saw Biome was working on some Z integration as well.
Actually, my day-to-day job is using WebStorm and Rust Rover from. Yes, I prefer this kind of IDEs since I started working as a web developer. What I really like is the diff. So when you're doing some merging conflict or rebase conflict, their merging tool, automatic merging tool, is so amazing that it has become part of my workflow. So without it, I can't even resolve conflicts anymore.
Yeah. I really have been enjoying a lot of the UI things there. What about, what do you do to stay up to date on topics?
Well, I'm subscribed to a lot of newsletters like JavaScript Weekly, Node Weekly, Front-End Focus. So a lot of mailing lists, also Hacker newsletter. Mm-hmm. That's essentially how I stay up to date. And also Twitter for, the drama and stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's move into sick picks and shameless plugs. Do you have a sick pick for us?
What I'm currently watching now, for example, on Netflix is Ripley. It's an exclusive TV series that came out like a few weeks ago, and it's really good. It's all in black and white. I don't remember the name of the actor, but he's a British actor. He played Moriarty in Sherlock a few years ago. I love this actor, and like it's also like the whole series is in Italy, so he actually speaks Italian and is really good at it. And so the mix of spoken Italian and spoken English, and I mean it's really good, and the story is amazing, and the actor is fabulous.
Wow, cool.
That's awesome. What part of Italy are you from?
Originally from the center of Italy, close to Rome, but then my family moved, and now they live in the north of Italy, next to Milan.
So it wasn't your idea to call it Rome initially?
Oh. I'm headed to Venice and Florence this summer, so it'll be my first time in Italy. I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, we went last summer. It's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, amazing cities. Yeah.
Last thing we have here is shameless plugs. As many things as you would like to plug to our audience.
Something that I would like to suggest. Well, I'm a bit biased, but check Astro.
Nice.
It's a really great framework, really great DX. So check it out. And of course, Biome. Biome, because as a news, has been nominated as a productivity booster for the OS Awards 2024.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah.
I'm biased, but I mean, it seems the community is acknowledging the efforts. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't think I have a specific other tool to suggest.
No, that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate all of your time and all of your insights. I'm glad we could sneak you in on one of these episodes. I'm really excited about Biome. So thanks for all your work on it, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Peace.
Bye.